The stars looked different today. Commander Veltar noticed this as he stood on the bridge of the silent observer. His 6 eyes focused on the display screens that showed the edge of known space. Something was moving out there, beyond the normal patrol routes of the Zephyrian Commonwealth. "Sir, we are getting strange readings from Sector 7, said Officer Nixital from his station. His webbed fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "The energy patterns do not match anything in our database." Veltar walked over to the sensor station. His tall, thin body moved with the grace that all Zephyrians had developed over millions of years of evolution.
"Show me what you have found." The main screen filled with data. Lines of numbers and charts appeared, but what caught Veltar's attention were the heat signatures. Whatever was out there was producing massive amounts of thermal energy. No ship
should be able to generate that much heat without melting its own hull. "This cannot be correct," Veltar said. "Run the scan again." Nixtal pressed several buttons. The same readings appeared on the screen. "The data is accurate, sir. There are multiple objects moving through space at high speed. They are much larger than our ships and producing heat levels that should destroy any known material." Veltar felt his skin change color slightly, a sign of confusion among his people. "Perhaps these are natural phenomena, asteroids caught in some kind of energy field." "No, sir," said another officer from across the bridge. "The movement patterns are too organized. These objects are under intelligent control." The Silent Observer was one of the Commonwealth's best scout ships. It had been built for long-range observation missions, equipped with the most advanced sensors available. If their instruments were showing these readings, then something very unusual was happening in this part of space. "Set course for the source of these signals," Veltar ordered. "But maintain maximum stealth protocols. I want to know what we are dealing with before we make contact." The ship changed directions smoothly. Its engines made almost no sound as they pushed the vessel through space. The Zephyrians had perfected silent running centuries ago. No other species had ever detected one of their scout ships when full stealth was engaged. As they got closer to the energy sources, the readings became even more strange. Veltar watched the data scroll across his screens and felt increasingly uncomfortable. These were not natural objects. They were artificial constructs. But unlike anything the Commonwealth had encountered before, "Sir, I am detecting 3 large objects," Nixtal reported. "They appear to be moving in formation. Each one is approximately 800 meters in length." Veltar's eyes widened. Ships of that size would require enormous crews and resources to build. Only the most advanced civilizations could construct vessels on such a scale. But the heat signatures suggested these ships were using incredibly primitive technology. What kind of propulsion system could generate so much waste heat? He wondered aloud. "Unknown, sir. But there is something else. I am detecting multiple weapon signatures aboard each vessel." This information made Veltar even more nervous. "What kind of weapons?" "The energy readings suggest projectile systems, sir. Primitive kinetic weapons, but in very large numbers. Each ship appears to carry hundreds of them." Veltar had studied military history during his training. Kinetic weapons were considered obsolete technology. Most civilized species had moved beyond such crude methods of warfare thousands of years ago. Energy weapons and particle beams were far more efficient and precise. "Perhaps these beings have not yet developed proper military technology," he suggested. "They may be using the best weapons available to their limited science." The Silent Observer continued its approach, staying far enough away to avoid detection. The alien ships ahead showed no signs of noticing the Zephyrian vessel. This confirmed Veltar's theory that these beings possessed inferior sensor technology. As they watched, the 3 large ships began to change their formation. They moved with surprising speed and coordination, despite their primitive appearance. Veltar noticed that their hulls were made of some kind of metal, painted in gray and black colors. "Sir, I am picking up communication signals between the alien vessels," reported the communications officer. "The transmissions are in an unknown language, but they appear to be coordinating their movements." "Can you decode their language?" "Not yet, sir. But the patterns suggest a complex communication system. These beings may be more intelligent than their technology suggests." Veltar studied the ships on his screen. They were certainly impressive in size, but their design looked clumsy and inefficient. Thick armor plating covered their hulls, making them appear heavy and slow. No advanced civilization would build ships that required so much structural material. "What is their current heading?" he asked. "They appear to be conducting some kind of patrol pattern, sir, moving between several star systems in this region." "A patrol suggests military purpose," Veltar noted. "These may be warships." The idea that such primitive-looking vessels could be effective warships seemed unlikely to him. The Commonwealth ships were sleek and elegant, using energy fields instead of heavy armor for protection. Their weapons could destroy targets from vast distances without the need for crude projectiles. "Sir, should we attempt to make contact?" asked Nixtal. Veltar considered this carefully. First contact protocols required careful preparation and approval from the High Council. These beings appeared to be less advanced than the Commonwealth, which meant they might be suitable for eventual integration into Zephyrian space. "No, not yet. We need more information before we reveal ourselves. Continue observation from this distance. Record everything you can about their technology and behavior patterns." The silent observer settled into a stable orbit that would allow them to watch the alien ships without being detected. Veltar ordered his crew to begin detailed scans of each vessel, documenting their construction methods, energy outputs, and communication patterns. As the hours passed, the readings became even more puzzling. The ships continued to produce enormous amounts of heat, yet their hulls showed no signs of thermal stress. Whatever materials these beings used to build their vessels, they were far more resilient than anything in the Commonwealth's technology database. "Perhaps we have underestimated these creatures," Veltar admitted to himself as he watched the alien ships continue their patrol. "Their technology may be different from ours, but it appears to be effective." He decided to send a preliminary report back to Commonwealth headquarters. The High Council would want to know about this discovery immediately. The existence of unknown intelligent species always required careful diplomatic consideration. As Veltar began composing his message, he had no idea that the beings aboard those primitive-looking ships called themselves humans, and that their simple gray warships carried enough firepower to reduce his entire home planet to radioactive dust. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Iron Thunder, watching the stars through the main view screen. The patrol had been routine so far, just another sweep of the outer systems to make sure no hostile forces were operating in human space. 3 destroyers made up his small fleet: Iron Thunder, Steel Wolf, and Storm Rider. "Captain, we are approaching the next waypoint," announced Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the sensor station. Her fingers moved across the control panel, with practiced ease. "All readings show normal space conditions." Jake nodded and walked over to the tactical display. The 3 ships were arranged in a standard patrol formation, spaced several thousand kilometers apart. This pattern allowed them to cover the maximum amount of space while maintaining mutual support if trouble arose. "Any sign of unusual activity in this sector?" he asked. "Nothing on sensors, sir. Just the usual background radiation and cosmic debris." Jake had been in the Navy for 15 years, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Something felt different about this patrol, though. He could not explain why. The space around them seemed quieter than usual, as if something was watching from the darkness. On his ship's bridge, the crew went about their duties with professional efficiency. The Iron Thunder was a Stark-class destroyer, one of the most advanced warships in the human fleet. Its weapon systems could engage targets at extreme range, while its armor could withstand direct hits from enemy missiles. Meanwhile, several billion kilometers away, the Zephyrian High Council was meeting. In emergency session, Admiral Kessetha stood before the assembled leaders, her tall frame casting a shadow across the chamber floor. "The report from Commander Veltar confirms our worst fears," she announced. "We have discovered a new species that possesses technology we do not understand." The council members shifted nervously in their seats. The Zephyrian Commonwealth had not encountered an unknown intelligent species for over 3,000 years. Most civilizations in this part of the galaxy were already members of the Commonwealth or had been absorbed into it. "What do we know about these creatures?" asked Council Leader Thexrin. Very little, Kesitha replied. They appear to use primitive materials and construction methods, yet their ships are larger than anything in our fleet. They also generate enormous amounts of thermal energy, suggesting inefficient power systems. Large ships with primitive technology, mused another council member. They sound like a species in the early stages of space development. Perhaps they would be suitable for guidance into our Commonwealth. Kesitha activated a holographic display that showed the data collected by the silent observer. The 3 human ships appeared as glowing shapes moving through space, their heat signatures blazing like small suns. The concerning factor is their apparent military focus, she continued. These vessels are clearly designed for warfare, with multiple weapon systems and heavy armor plating. A species that prioritizes military development over scientific advancement may be difficult to integrate peacefully. Back on the Iron Thunder, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was reviewing the latest sensor sweeps when she noticed something unusual. There was a faint energy signature at the edge of her detection range, so weak that it barely registered on her instruments. "Captain, I have a possible contact," she called out. "Very faint, bearing 270 Mark 15. Jake moved to her station and studied the display. "What kind of contact?" "Unknown, sir. The signature is too weak to classify. Could be natural phenomena, space debris, or possibly a very distant ship. Keep tracking it. Let me know if the signal strength changes." Amy continued monitoring the contact while the patrol proceeded. The signal remained at the same intensity, neither growing stronger nor fading away. This suggested that whatever was generating it was maintaining a constant distance from the human ships. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Kesitha was making final preparations for an expanded observation mission. The High Council had approved, sending a larger fleet to study these mysterious beings and determine their intentions. "I want detailed scans of their technology," she instructed her staff officers. "Find out how they build ships so large and what kind of weapons they carry. Most importantly, determine if they pose a threat to Commonwealth interests." The Zephyrian fleet consisted of 5 ships, all equipped with the most advanced stealth and sensor technology available. They would be able to observe the humans from a safe distance without being detected, or so Admiral Kesitha believed. Commander Ryan Brooks aboard the USS Steel Wolf was conducting his own sensor sweeps when he noticed something that made him frown. There were subtle gravitational fluctuations in nearby space, too regular to be natural, but too faint to be clearly identified. "Chief Hayes, come take a look at this," he called to his senior enlisted sensor operator, Chief Petty Officer Lisa. Hayes moved to his console and studied the readings. "That is odd, sir. Looks like there might be something out there using gravitational manipulation technology. Have we ever encountered anything like this before?" "Not in my experience, sir, but it could be a new type of stealth system." Ryan made a note in the ship's log about the anomalous readings. Human doctrine required careful documentation of any unusual phenomena encountered during patrol operations. The intelligence services would want to analyze this data later. The Zephyrian observation fleet arrived at the patrol area 3 days later. Admiral Kesitha positioned her ships in a wide formation around the human vessels, maintaining what she considered a safe observation distance. Her crews began intensive scanning operations, trying to penetrate the mysteries of human technology. "The construction methods are truly bizarre," reported her chief science officer. "They use solid metal plates for armor instead of energy fields. Their power systems appear to be nuclear fusion reactors, incredibly inefficient compared to our quantum generators. Yet their ships are functional," Kesitha observed. "Perhaps these beings compensate for technological limitations through brute force engineering." The Zephyrian scans revealed more puzzling details about human ship design. The vessels carried enormous amounts of ammunition for their kinetic weapons, stored in heavily armored magazines throughout the hull. This suggested a military doctrine based on sustained combat, rather than quick decisive strikes. "Admiral, I am detecting communication signals between the human vessels," reported the communications officer. "They use electromagnetic radiation for data transmission, very primitive but effective. Can you decode their language? We are making progress, but it will take time. Their communication patterns are quite complex for such a technologically limited species. Back on the Iron Thunder, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was beginning to notice patterns in the weak energy signatures she had been tracking. The contacts seemed to be maintaining formation around the human patrol, matching their movements and speed. "Captain, I think we may have company," she announced. "Those faint contacts I detected earlier are still there, and they appear to be shadowing our movements." Jake felt his instincts sharpen. "How many contacts?" "At least 5, possibly more. They are staying at extreme range, just at the edge of our sensor capability. Could they be natural phenomena?" "Unlikely, sir. The movement patterns are too coordinated." Jake considered his options. If unknown ships were following his patrol, it could mean anything from scientific curiosity to hostile reconnaissance. His standing orders were clear: protect human space and investigate any potential threats. "Signal the other ships," he ordered. "Have them adjust their sensor arrays for maximum sensitivity. I want to know what is out there." The human fleet began, modifying their scanning patterns, focusing their most powerful sensors on the faint contacts. Unknown to them, this change in operations was about to overwhelm the Zephyrian observation systems and trigger the first major misunderstanding between two very different species. The mistake happened because of a simple navigation error. Subcommander Yaltes was piloting the Zephyrian scout ship Whisper Wind when he miscalculated his drift correction. Instead of maintaining the proper observation distance, his ship moved 3,000 kilometers closer to the human patrol. "Subcommander, we are approaching minimum safe distance," warned his sensor operator. "Adjusting course now," Yaltes replied, but the correction came too late. On the USS Iron Thunder, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez watched her screen as one of the faint contacts suddenly became much stronger. "Captain, contact bearing 270, just increased signal strength by 400%. Range approximately 50,000 kilometers." Captain Jake Morrison felt his blood run cold. In space warfare, any unidentified vessel that close was considered an immediate threat. "Sound general quarters. Signal all ships to combat alert status." Alarms began blaring throughout the Iron Thunder as the crew rushed to their battle stations. In the weapon control centers, technicians powered up the ship's main guns and missile systems. The massive destroyer transformed from a patrol vessel into a deadly war machine in less than 2 minutes. Commander Ryan Brooks aboard the Steel Wolf received the alert signal and immediately brought his ship to combat readiness. "All hands to battle stations, weapons online, shields up. Prepare for possible hostile contact." The third ship in the formation, Storm Rider under Captain Beth Turner, completed the triangle as all 3 human vessels moved into an attack formation that had been perfected through decades of naval doctrine. Admiral Kesitha watched in horror from her flagship as the human ship suddenly blazed with energy. Her sensors, which had been carefully monitoring the alien vessels, were overwhelmed by the massive power surge as 3 destroyers prepared for battle. "What is happening?" she demanded from her bridge crew. "The human ships are powering their weapon systems," reported her tactical officer, his voice filled with fear. "Admiral, the energy readings are beyond anything in our database." On the Whisper Wind, Subcommander Yaltes realized his error had triggered a massive response from the humans. His instruments showed energy levels that seemed impossible for ships of that size to generate. "Emergency retreat," he ordered. "Maximum stealth, all power to engines." But it was too late. The human sensors had locked onto his position. "Contact is moving," announced Amy Rodriguez. "Bearing change indicates attempted withdrawal. Captain, there are 4 additional contacts now visible, all moving away from our position." Jake Morrison studied the tactical display. 5 unknown vessels, all retreating after being discovered. This looked like a classic reconnaissance mission gone wrong. "Launch active sensor sweeps. I want full identification on all contacts." The Iron Thunder's main sensor array activated with the power of a small star. The focused energy beam swept across space, penetrating the Zephyrian stealth systems like sunlight through fog. Admiral Kesitha's flagship shuddered as the human sensor sweep washed over them. Alarms sounded throughout the ship as systems overloaded. From the sheer intensity of the scan. Damage report, she ordered. Sensor array is offline, stealth systems failing, and 3 power conduits have burned out, came the reply. Admiral, their scanning beam is more powerful than our main weapons. This information terrified Kesitha. If the humans used such massive energy levels for simple sensor operations, what kind of power did their actual weapons possess? On the human ships, the active scans revealed detailed information about the alien vessels. The data showed ships with technology that appeared both advanced and primitive at the same time. Captain, I have classification on the contacts, Amy Rodriguez reported. 5 ships, unknown design, approximately 400 meters each. They appear to be using some kind of stealth technology, but our scans have penetrated it. Any response? To our hails? No, sir. They are maintaining communications silence. Jake considered his options. The unknown ships had been conducting surveillance on his patrol, which was a hostile act under human military doctrine. However, they were now retreating, which suggested they did not want direct confrontation. Signal the fleet. We will pursue and attempt communication. If they refuse to respond or show any hostile intent, we are authorized to use force. The 3 human destroyers changed course and began chasing the fleeing Zephyrian ships. Their powerful engines quickly began closing the distance despite the aliens' head start. Commander Veltar aboard the Silent Observer watched the pursuit develop with growing alarm. The human ships were faster than they had appeared during the initial observations. Worse, they were maintaining formation even at high speed, demonstrating a level of tactical coordination that spoke of extensive military training. Admiral Kesitha, the humans are gaining on our position, he reported over the communication link. Recommend we split our formation to avoid capture. Negative, came the reply. Maintain current course. I am transmitting full sensor data to Fleet Command. If we do not return, at least the Commonwealth will know what we discovered. The Zephyrian ships pushed their engines to maximum power, but the human vessels continued to close the gap. Worse, the massive energy signatures from the pursuing ships were growing stronger, suggesting they were powering up additional systems. On the Steel Wolf, Commander Ryan Brooks was analyzing the sensor data from the alien ships. Captain Morrison, these vessels are using technology I've never seen before. Their hulls appear to be made of materials that should not exist, and their power systems operate on unknown principles. Are they a threat? Jake asked over the communication link. Unknown, sir, but their stealth capabilities suggest advanced technology. The fact that they were observing us without permission indicates possible hostile intent. Jake made his decision. All ships increase speed to maximum pursuit velocity. We cannot allow unidentified vessels to escape after conducting surveillance in human space. The human destroyers accelerated to their top speed, their fusion engines blazing like miniature suns. The heat signatures from the 3 ships were visible across half the solar system as they chased the fleeing aliens. Admiral Kesitha watched her instruments as the human ships drew closer. The energy readings were beyond comprehension. Each pursuing vessel was generating more power than her entire fleet combined. How is this possible? She wondered aloud. No ship should be able to sustain such energy output. Her science officer provided the answer that chilled her to the bone. Admiral, I believe we have made a terrible error in our assessment of these beings. They are not primitive at all. They have simply chosen a completely different approach to technology development. What do you mean? Instead of efficiency and elegance, they have focused on raw power and durability. Their ships are built like mobile fortresses, designed to absorb enormous damage while delivering devastating attacks. The implications of this revelation struck Kestha like a physical blow. The Commonwealth had spent thousands of years developing sophisticated technology that used minimal energy and materials. The humans had apparently decided that subtlety was unnecessary when you could simply overpower any problem. Admiral, the humans are now within weapon range, reported her tactical officer. Kesista looked at the pursuing ships on her screen. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy her entire fleet, and they were closing fast. The Zephyrian Commonwealth, which had considered itself the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, had just discovered that there were beings out there who could overwhelm their technology through sheer brute force. "Prepare to surrender," she ordered quietly. "Signal all ships to power down weapons and prepare for boarding. We cannot fight these creatures." But the humans had no intention of boarding the alien ships. They wanted answers, and they were about to demonstrate why most species in the galaxy had learned to fear the sound of human warships approaching at full combat speed. The Zephyrian fleet broke formation as panic spread among the crews. Admiral Kestha watched her ships scatter in different directions, each captain making the desperate decision to save his own vessel rather than maintain military discipline. "All ships maintain formation," she ordered over the communication system, but her commands were ignored. The sheer terror of being pursued by the human destroyers had overwhelmed normal protocol. Sub-Commander Yaltes pushed the Whisper Wind beyond its design limits, but the human ships continued to gain ground. His instruments showed the pursuing vessels maintaining perfect formation even at extreme velocity, a feat that should have been impossible for ships of their size. "Sir, their tactical coordination is flawless," reported his navigator. "They are operating as a single unit rather than 3 separate ships." This observation terrified Yaltes more than the energy readings. It meant the humans possessed not just overwhelming technology, but also superior military training and discipline. On the USS Iron Thunder, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker stood at the tactical console, coordinating the pursuit with cold efficiency. "Steel Wolf, adjust heading by 15 degrees starboard. Stormrider, increase altitude by 2,000 meters. We will box them in using formation Delta 7. Captain Jake Morrison watched the maneuver develop on his main screen. Formation Delta 7 was a classic encirclement pattern that had been used by human naval forces for centuries. The alien ships were about to discover why it was so effective. "Time to intercept?" he asked. 18 minutes at current speed," Steve replied. "The alien vessels are fast, but their engines appear to be overheating from the sustained high-power operation." Jake nodded. Human ships were built for extended combat operations, with engine systems that could maintain maximum power for hours, if necessary. The aliens seemed to have designed their vessels for stealth and efficiency, rather than sustained high-speed pursuit. Admiral Kestha received reports from her fleeing ships that confirmed her worst fears. The human vessels were not just faster and more powerful than expected. They were also demonstrating tactical knowledge that suggested extensive combat experience. "Admiral, the humans are using pursuit formations that indicate professional military training," reported Commander Veltar from the Silent Observer. "This is not a patrol force stumbling through space. These are experienced warships operating under established doctrine." The implications struck Kestha like ice water. The Commonwealth had assumed these beings were primitive because their technology appeared crude and inefficient. Instead, they had encountered a species that had turned warfare into a precise science. "What are our options?" she asked her staff. "Limited, Admiral. We can continue running until our engines fail, or we can attempt to surrender and hope they honor diplomatic protocol. Do we know if they understand the concept of surrender?" "Unknown. We have no information about their cultural practices or military customs." This uncertainty added another layer of fear to the situation. The humans might be the type of species that destroyed any ship that entered their territory without permission. On the Steel Wolf, Commander Ryan Brooks was studying detailed scans of the fleeing alien vessels. The data revealed technology that was simultaneously fascinating and disturbing. "Captain Morrison, I am seeing some very unusual design features on these ships," he reported over the communication link. "Their hulls appear to be constructed from materials that shift density based on energy input. It is like they can make their ships lighter or heavier as needed." "How is that possible?" Jake asked. "Unknown, sir. The physics involved are beyond our current understanding, but it explains how they achieved such effective stealth capabilities." This information made Jake even more determined to intercept the aliens. Technology that could manipulate matter at the molecular level represented a potential threat to human security. The Fleet Command would want to study these ships and their capabilities. "All ships prepare for intercept. Use formation Delta 7 Alpha. We want them alive if possible, but do not let them escape." The 3 human destroyers moved into their Final attack positions. The maneuver was executed with the precision of a ballet, each ship taking its assigned position in the formation without wasted motion or communication. Sub-Commander Yaltes watched in horror as the human ships surrounded his small fleet. The tactical display showed the aliens trapped in a perfect cage of fire, with human weapons trained on them from 3 different angles. "They have us," he reported to Admiral Kessetha. "The humans have achieved tactical superiority. Our ships are completely outmaneuvered." "Signal all vessels to reduce speed and prepare for contact," Kessetha ordered. "We have no choice but to see what these beings want from us." The Zephyrian ships began to slow down, their engines cooling from the desperate flight. The human vessels matched their deceleration perfectly, maintaining their encirclement formation as both fleets came to relative rest in empty space. Captain Jake Morrison studied the alien ships on his main screen. Up close, they were even more mysterious than the long-range scans had suggested. Their hulls seemed to shimmer and shift as if the metal itself was alive. "Open communication channels on all frequencies," he ordered. "Let us see if they want to talk." Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez activated the ship's communication systems and began broadcasting on every known frequency band. The messages included mathematical sequences, pictorial representations, and basic audio patterns designed to establish peaceful contact with unknown species. Admiral Kessetha received the human communications and felt a mixture of relief and fear. The fact that the humans were attempting peaceful contact suggested they were not immediately hostile. However, the overwhelming power demonstrated during the pursuit showed they could destroy the Zephyrian fleet at any moment. "Respond to their transmissions," she ordered her communications officer. "Use standard first contact protocols. Show them we are intelligent beings seeking peaceful interaction." The Zephyrian response included mathematical proofs, star charts showing their home system, and cultural information designed to demonstrate their advanced civilization. They hoped the humans would recognize them as equals, deserving of diplomatic courtesy. On the Iron Thunder, the alien response caused considerable excitement among the crew. The transmissions showed clear evidence of advanced mathematics, astronomy, and cultural development. "Captain, these beings are definitely intelligent," reported the communications officer. "Their mathematical knowledge appears to equal or exceed our own. The star charts show they come from a solar system approximately 47 light-years from here." Jake felt some of his tension ease. Intelligent beings who attempted peaceful communication were usually reasonable to deal with. However, the fact that they had been conducting surveillance in human space still required explanation. "Signal the alien fleet. Request that one of their ships approach for direct contact. Maintain weapons readiness, but do not target them unless they show hostile intent." Steve Parker looked up from his tactical console. "Sir, recommend we board one of their vessels to establish face-to-face contact. It would demonstrate our peaceful intentions while allowing us to gather intelligence on their capabilities." Jake considered this suggestion. Human first contact doctrine called for careful initial meetings to avoid cultural misunderstandings that could lead to conflict. However, the aliens' stealth technology and surveillance activities suggested they might not be entirely trustworthy. "Prepare a boarding party, but keep it small. Security team plus science officers. We want to learn about these beings without appearing threatening." Admiral Kessetha received the human request for direct contact and realized she had no choice but to comply. The human ships had demonstrated they possessed overwhelming tactical superiority. Refusing their request might be interpreted as hostile behavior. "Prepare the silent observer for human visitors," she ordered. "Commander Veltar will host the meeting. All crew members are to remain calm and avoid any actions that might provoke these beings." As both fleets prepared for first contact, neither side fully understood what they were about to discover. The humans thought they were meeting a technologically advanced but militarily inferior species. The Zephyrians believed they were about to negotiate with the most terrifying warriors in the galaxy. Both assumptions were about to be proven completely wrong. The docking bay of the Silent Observer had been hastily prepared for human visitors. Commander Veltar stood waiting with his senior officers, all of them nervous about meeting these mysterious beings face to face. The humans had agreed to send Only a small team, but even that gesture felt threatening given their demonstrated capabilities. Remember, these beings may interpret sudden movements as hostile, Veltar warned his crew. Remain calm and avoid touching your weapons under any circumstances. The human shuttle approached with mechanical precision, its pilot demonstrating the same flawless coordination they had observed during the pursuit. The small craft settled onto the deck with barely a vibration, showing remarkable control for such primitive-looking technology. Captain Jake Morrison led the human delegation, accompanied by his science officer Dr. Patricia Wells and 2 security personnel. As the shuttle's ramp lowered, he got his first look at the alien ship's interior. The Zephyrian vessel was unlike anything he had expected. Instead of metal corridors and mechanical systems, the walls seemed to be made of organic material that pulsed with soft light. The air itself felt different, charged with energy that made his skin tingle. Commander Veltar stepped forward to greet the humans, his tall, thin frame moving with fluid grace. When Jake saw the alien for the first time, he was struck by how elegant and refined the being appeared. This was clearly a member of an advanced civilization. "Welcome aboard our vessel," Veltar said through a translation device his crew had quickly assembled. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Commonwealth. We come in peace and seek understanding between our peoples." Jake nodded respectfully. "Captain Jake Morrison, United Earth Navy. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us. However, we need to discuss why your ships were conducting surveillance in human space without permission." The directness of the human's question surprised Veltar. Most species would have spent considerable time on diplomatic pleasantries before addressing such sensitive topics. These beings seemed to prefer straightforward communication. "We were observing your vessels because they produced energy signatures unlike anything in our database," Veltar explained. "The Zephyrian Commonwealth monitors this region of space for scientific purposes. We meant no harm." Dr. Wells stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming diplomatic protocol. "Your ship's construction is fascinating. The hull material appears to be semi-organic. How do you achieve such integration between biological and mechanical systems?" This question revealed something that shocked Veltar. The humans could analyze their technology just by looking at it. Their scientific knowledge was far more advanced than their crude-looking ships suggested. "Our technology grows rather than being built," he explained. "We cultivate materials that adapt to our needs, creating ships that are partially alive." Jake listened to this exchange and began to understand why the alien ships had seemed so mysterious during their pursuit. They were not just using different technology, they were using an entirely different approach to engineering. "Commander Veltar, your ships demonstrated remarkable stealth capabilities," he noted. "We were only able to detect them when our sensors were operating at maximum power." Veltar felt a chill at this casual statement. The humans had penetrated Zephyrian stealth systems using what they considered normal sensor operations. Their technology was far more powerful than it appeared. "Your sensor arrays are very sophisticated," he replied carefully. "We were impressed by their capabilities." Jake laughed, a sound that made several Zephyrian officers step backward in alarm. "Those were just standard patrol sweeps. If we had used our military-grade sensor systems, we would have detected you from twice the distance." This information terrified Veltar. The humans had overwhelming sensor capability and were treating it as routine equipment. What other technologies were they casually carrying that the Commonwealth considered impossible? Dr. Wells continued examining the alien ship's interior, her excitement growing with each discovery. "Captain, this technology could revolutionize our understanding of materials science. The applications for self-adapting structures are unlimited." "Dr. Wells, remember we are guests here," Jake warned gently, but he was equally fascinated by what he was seeing. Admiral Kessetha listened to the meeting through the communication link, her fear growing with each exchange. The humans were examining Zephyrian technology, as if it were an interesting curiosity rather than the advanced science it represented. Their casual confidence suggested they possessed capabilities that made Commonwealth technology seem primitive. Commander Veltar decided to ask a direct question that had been troubling him since the pursuit began. "Captain Morrison, your ships generated enormous amounts of energy during the chase. How do you prevent your hulls from melting under such thermal stress? Jake looked puzzled by the question. Thermal stress? Our hull armor is designed to withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. The heat from our engines is not a significant concern. This answer revealed the fundamental difference between human and Zephyrian approaches to technology. The aliens had focused on efficiency and elegance, while humans had concentrated on durability and raw power. Nuclear weapons? Veltar asked. Weakly. Standard ship-to-ship armament, Jake replied. Each of our destroyers carries approximately 200 nuclear warheads plus conventional kinetic weapons and energy cannons. The casual way the human mentioned weapons that could destroy continents made Veltar's legs feel weak. A single human ship carried more destructive power than the entire Zephyrian defense fleet. Dr. Wells noticed the alien's reaction and tried to reassure him. Do not worry, Commander. We only use such weapons against military targets. Human doctrine prohibits attacks on civilian populations. Her attempt at comfort had the opposite effect. The human spoke of devastating weapons as if they were routine tools, then casually mentioned having rules about when to use them. This implied they had extensive experience with interstellar warfare. Captain Morrison, Veltar said carefully, may I ask how many ships your fleet possesses? Jake considered how much information to reveal. The patrol fleet consists of 3 destroyers. The total human navy includes approximately 800 warships of various classes, plus support vessels. 800 warships. The number hit Veltar like a physical blow. The entire Zephyrian Commonwealth had perhaps 50 vessels that could be considered military ships, and none of them carried the firepower of a single human destroyer. Admiral Kestha, listening to this conversation, realized the Commonwealth had made a catastrophic error in judgment. They had discovered not just another spacefaring species but a civilization that treated warfare as a science, and had built a military force capable of conquering half the galaxy. Commander Veltar, perhaps we should discuss establishing formal, diplomatic relations between our peoples, Jake suggested. The United Earth government would be interested in peaceful contact with the Zephyrian Commonwealth. The offer of diplomacy should have been welcome news, but Veltar could not shake his growing fear of these beings. They spoke of peace while carrying enough weapons to sterilize entire worlds. Their idea of normal military operations would be considered acts of total war by Commonwealth standards. I will convey your offer to our leadership, he managed to say. The Commonwealth values peaceful relationships with all intelligent species. Jake smiled, another expression that made the aliens nervous. Excellent. We will provide our diplomatic contact information before we depart. I hope this is the beginning of a productive relationship between our civilizations. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Dr. Wells made one final observation that would haunt Veltar for years to come. Commander, your technology is truly remarkable. I hope we can arrange for scientific exchanges between our peoples. Human researchers would love to study your biomechanical systems. The casual way she spoke of studying Commonwealth technology revealed another terrifying truth. The humans viewed Zephyrian science as something to be analyzed and understood, rather than respected and feared. They possessed the confidence of a species that had never encountered technology they could not eventually master. After the humans departed, Commander Veltar sat alone in his quarters, trying to process what he had learned. The Commonwealth had spent thousands of years developing elegant, efficient technology. They had created ships that were works of art, weapons that killed with precision, and sensors that could detect the smallest disturbances in space. The humans had taken a completely different approach. They had built ships like mobile fortresses, weapons like instruments of apocalypse, and sensors powerful enough to burn through any stealth system. Where the Commonwealth sought elegance, humanity chose overwhelming force. Captain Jake Morrison returned to the Iron Thunder with a very different perspective on the encounter. The Zephyrians were clearly intelligent and technologically sophisticated, but their military capabilities seemed limited. Their ships were marvels of engineering, but they appeared to be designed for exploration and science rather than warfare. Dr. Wells, what is your assessment of their technology? He asked during the debriefing. Fascinating but impractical for military use, she replied. They're